Okay, President Tolan, whenever you're ready. I've got 7 o'clock here on the computer.
Thank you. We'll call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. For the audience tonight, I am president and serve as the presiding officer for tonight's meeting. Before we move forward, I would like to announce that in response to executive orders issued by Governor Newsom, the city is conducting a teleconference to public meeting utilizing Zoom video communications. This allows the city to continue to conduct essential business and comply with the Public Health Administration recommendations to protect the public and city employees, practice social distancing, and limit exposure by not allowing in-person public meetings. To ensure that the public will be able to participate, public comments can be submitted as live comments during the Zoom meeting and via email at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. Madam Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call?
Thank you, President Tolan. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each trustee respond with present when their name is called. Trustee Blum.
Present.
Trustee Flowers. Trustee Flowers has indicated he would not be in attendance tonight. Trustee Landman.
Present.
Vice President Chu.
Present.
President Tolan.
Present.
4 of 5 board members are present. Thank you, President.
Thank you. Trustee Landman, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Reordering of and additions to the agenda. Does anyone wish to reorder or add to tonight's agenda? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the public comment period. Shall open the public comment period. We invite members of the public to address the Board of Library Trustees on items listed on the agenda. Announce that speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on both on and off agenda items. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Public comments is limited to 30 minutes. If you would like to request to speak, please select the raise hand icon in Zoom before the close of the public comment period. You will then be called upon when it is your turn to speak. Have any public comments been received?
Thank you, President Tolan. At this time, we have received no request via the public comment email or through the Zoom meeting to give public comment.
All right, then we shall close the public comment period. Thank you. We'll move on to board statements and reports. Do any trustees have any reports or announcements?
Yes, reports. I think me and Erica, we went to the grant proposal meeting with the Friends Foundation. It was a very efficient and effective meeting, in my opinion. We went through all of the grant proposals that the library staff had put together. We talked about grants relating to adult and youth services, some of the programs that we have going on in the adults and youth services administration stuff, as well as some very exciting new pieces of furniture that the library is looking to purchase in the near future. But Erica, do you have anything that you would like to add to that?
No, it was really thorough. It was a great meeting, and they were very excited with some of the new furniture indeed. And they were also beginning to discuss the 50th anniversary. So we were discussing that. Should I go into what they were discussing right now, or do I need to wait until it comes up on the agenda?
So if it's related to giving a report on what was discussed there and specifically at that meeting, you can discuss it, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So some of the topics regarding the 50th anniversary, it's a reintroduction to the building of the library itself, and to view the building as a corner package. Local history was brought up because the library was talking about possibly looking into getting more types of local history to house within the library, and even personal history, memories involving the library as well. And it could be from anybody. So that was really exciting. That's like reconnecting with their own history with the library, and just also mentioning challenges and possible upcoming needs for the library itself. So those were the big takeaways that I got for that topic. And I'm really excited though about the 50th anniversary. That's great. So okay.
Were the grant proposals, were they already determined during that meeting? Did they already make the decisions? Or will they come back and let us know what?
I believe that they had already determined what the grants were. There was one regarding adult literacy. Let's see. Yeah, that was a big one. Brianna, did you get any of the other?
Yeah, so we talked about the Summer Discovery Challenge grant, a literacy outreach for preschool, preschool and early literacy outreach, Battle of the Books, the Discovery Challenge badge design contest, administrative stuff, things that can help the Responsive Creativity Fund, as well as adult literacy, e-library, children's programming, 50th, and the mobile components. Yeah, it looks like it, to me, the board members are very pleased with the grants that were put together. They did have a few questions and concerns regarding some of the money that was left over from the previous fiscal year, which Cindy and Janet did very well in explaining why. And yeah.
Great. Well, that sounds great. Like it was a really productive meeting.
So, Elvia, may I clarify something?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So with regards to the question, so generally asked about whether they knew about the grants by the end of the meeting. I just, in case that meant were the grants approved by the end of the meeting, they were not. We are awaiting the final sort of grant award notice from the foundation. So this was us giving information, that meeting was us giving information to the foundation, and still to come is their response regarding those applications.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That was my question. Okay. Does anyone else have anything on that, on the grant proposal meeting with the Friends Foundation?
No, that's it for me.
No.
Okay, thank you for that update. Does anyone have any other reports or announcements to make? Okay, seeing no one, then we'll move on to agenda 2. Director and attorney statements. Director Stone, would you please?
Thank you very much. It's good to be back with all of you again. You have a written report from the director and the divisions. That's in your packet. It's available online. It's pretty extensive, so I will just offer a couple of addenda to that. Most of these are things that were occurring as it was being written or have occurred after. First of all, I wanted to mention that the council considered some information about the American Rescue Plan Act funds. That's commonly known as ARPA, the ARPA funds. This is related to COVID recovery. And they directed staff to return on October 12th to council for final approval of the plan that was presented. Later in the evening, we'll be talking about our strategic plan review report. And as part of that report, I did insert a small table of how the city is proposing to spend those ARPA funds. So that will come back up. But I just wanted to comment that since that report was written, the council has taken a look at those plans, directed staff to come back in October to finalize. Just in case you're curious about the details, the Glendora was allocated just over 7.5 million, and it will come in roughly in halves. Half was received in May this year, and the second half will be received in May of 2022. Funds may be used to cover costs incurred during the period beginning March 3rd, 2021, and ending on December 31st, 2024. So just a little update about ARPA. Also, council action recently under SB 970, starting in 2022, the statewide primary election will be held in June of the years without a presidential election and in March of the years with a presidential election. And so as the city combines its election with the statewide primary, there will be a little bit of fluctuation happening. And to address issues caused by that, the city council has directed staff to begin the process of submitting a request to Los Angeles County to change Glendora's election date from March of 2022 to November of 2022. And they're going through the whole ordinance process for that. So that being said, there are a couple of things at play here. The fact that the primary elections to which we have now attached our spring election is fluctuating. And so, to address that, we are looking at moving all of that to November. And I wanted to mention it because we don't know yet what the ripple effects of any of that might be on the boards and commissions, and how that will come into play with the library board, if at all. But I just wanted to mention that has been part of the council's business. If anybody from the city clerk can, if I got any of that wrong, I'm happy for additional aid with that one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Due to legislative priorities kind of changing, I guess, from year to year, there was a great idea that somebody had to change the elections. And so we followed suit. And then there was another great idea to change the elections again. And so we followed suit. So this is where we find ourselves now. The good thing that I can say is that voters now have gotten accustomed to more so to the voting centers and voting early. And so we have had a minimal amount of phone calls for this last election. Previous to that, we had a handful of calls. Before the voting centers and outreach efforts that we did, we received call after call and people coming in on a regular basis. So I think the outreach efforts have helped a lot, so that regardless of when the elections are going to fall, folks are going to know that here's the election, here's your ballot, here's where you can vote, right? And I think because of that, we're going to see less confusion. If anything, we can team up with LA County registrar again to do some outreach as soon as we start getting into that voting season again, if needed. I'll leave that up to you if you want to have someone like we did before in the library to be there to answer questions, but that is always available to you should you think you need it. So you got everything right. It's exactly what we're hoping for. We're waiting for the Board of Supervisors to approve the change in our ordinance, and then that'll be implemented in 30 days.
Thank you very much for that added clarification. I appreciate that. For the board, just a piece of environmental stuff that may impact how we do business. We'll keep you posted. Let's see, a couple of other things. We did have a contract librarian from the agency that we have used in the past who joined us about a week ago. So we have some part-time assistants on contract from them. His name is Martin. If you see him when you come in, say hello. And regarding the closed session that often we have at this time of year to start talking about the library director evaluation process, city manager was unavailable tonight and said he's going to try to get those sheets sent out to the library board so that we can begin that discussion in October. So just a status update on that process. And finally, just because it's really one of the crowning jewels of library events during the year, I do want to mention that the Battle of the Books is upcoming. It's well documented, but it deserves a verbal shout out. That will be on September 30th at 6:00 p.m. Please join us on YouTube as Bidwell is being booked for a certain number of family members for each team person. So the rest of us can watch on YouTube. And those are my additions to the written report that's available everywhere. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
I have a question. Janet, what's the YouTube channel that we would go to? Is it
It's
included in the packet or is it something else?
It can be found in our online calendar on our website, but I can also just read it to you. It's youtube.com/City of Glendora CA. So City of Glendora CA, all one word, no dots, no spaces, no underscore. But there's a link to it. If you go into the library's events calendar and find the battle, you can link to it right there.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Could somebody tell me what the election dates are for the next 4 years if they're approved? What are the months of those elections, city elections?
Okay, so I think it depends on whether or not we have a county election and whether or not that's going to coincide with the state primary. So they all have to align. If there is no election at that time for council that's slated, then technically we would have to wait for the county to give us whether or not they're going to have anything on the ballot. So there is no potential date unless something is called by the county. Otherwise, it would align with the state primary, presidential primary.
Okay.
So, but they have agreed to alternate. So we are going to alternate unless there's a special election.
And what's that alternation? If we alternate, what would that look like?
It is very confusing to follow, but the way it is worded, I'm going to word it to you. Hold on, I'm going to find it right now so that you can, here it is. Okay. So the way it is worded, okay, it is, hold on. Change of election. Okay, so changing the date of the city's general municipal election from the first Tuesday after the first Monday in March of even numbered years to the date of the statewide general election in even numbered years in response to Senate Bill 970, amending chapters 2.54 of the General Municipal Code, adjusting the terms of office in light of the same, and repealing previous ordinance 2029. Sounds foreign, right? Yeah. So look for a lot of outreach information coming your way as soon as we start to see that this gets approved by the County Board of Supervisors and then implemented.
Okay.
So we're going to try to make it as easy to follow as possible, but it will mean that we'll have to fluctuate because now the statewide elections are fluctuating.
I'll check back from time to time.
We'll definitely keep you informed as more information becomes available. Probably the closer we get to maybe, I would say March, April, the more information you'll see.
When would the very next election be? The earliest the next election would be?
So we would extend it to November of 22 instead of March of 22, I believe. So that the terms, I believe it's districts 1 and 3, but that's the other issue. districts 1 and 3 would have normally gone in March. Now it's going to go in November. So it pushes it out by that many months. However, we are also mandated by law to redistrict after every census. So we are now receiving information to redistrict. So we're waiting on County Board of Supervisors change our election and then to determine where the districts are going to end up, the boundaries. Right. So there's a couple things that are at play here, but we do know that both seats, I believe 1 and 3 would be up for election in March, are now pushed out to November.
When do those boundaries have to be done?
The ballots?
The boundaries.
Oh, the boundaries.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure when the deadline is, but we are waiting to get the final reports from the Census Bureau in order to make that determination. So we're doing all the work right now because we know what's required to redistrict, right? And we're just waiting for that information to come in where we can kind of fill in all those numbers and then have potential maps brought to a vote, you know, and feedback from the residents.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think it's District 1 and 4 that's up.
Is it?
I
I'd
think.
have to look. I'm sorry. I don't have that available.
That's okay. I know it's
Yeah.
confusing. It's okay.
Thank you for that that team effort and to the board for understanding why I figured we might want this on your radar as it all gets sorted out, because it all impacts sort of the political and local legislative life of the city. So I'm happy to answer any other questions or close off the report for the evening. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
No more.
Thank you, Director Stone. We'll move on to item 3. Year-end statistics report for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Director Stone.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you saw in the directors and division reports, we are working on revamping some parts of this this multi-page Excel table that you'll see in your packet. We do, and this is the thing that generates the monthly report that you see, the summary that you see. That's why that's sort of on hiatus at the moment. This multi-page thing we bring to you a couple of times a year so that you can check in on how all of the detailed numbers about the community's opportunities at the library, how all of that is going. So this is our year-end wrap-up for fiscal year 2021. And throughout, the two main things are you will see a lot of numbers that have been affected by first of all, the main floor closure, and then later the limited hours of the main floor. And you will also see throughout continued increases from June to June across those 2 months. So those are kind of the two major trends that you'll see, and we'll go through each section this evening. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first section of our statistical tables here are general service indicators. And in each section that we'll go through, I will talk about what happens June to June, and then what you saw as the year-long trends. So June to June here, we did see continued increases in memberships and computer usage and self-check usage, in printing jobs and total items loaned, circulation, customers served. In some cases, these are increases, not just necessarily June to June of each year, but also June compared with the immediately preceding months. So there are a couple of ways that we're talking about June. But anyway, a lot of things did show those increases as our customers came back on to the main floor in those last few months of the fiscal year. And then we saw a huge surge in Wi-Fi sessions as well. For the whole fiscal year, these general service indicators, you will see that the numbers were impacted by the main floor limitations, but you'll also see that the community continued to have access to new memberships, to internet and computer use and to circulation, thanks to the creativity of the staff. We actually, our electronic circulation and our Wi-Fi thrived either throughout the year or through a big upswing at the very end. And as we move forward, we will be looking at how to adjust our copy center numbers to reflect the new self-service models that we are under, because you will see some differences there, which are largely because we changed that service model. Next slide, please. So the next section of these tables is collection development, meaning the purchase, the selection and purchase of the materials that go into our physical inventory or our electronic inventory. The June trend here is that the titles and items numbers reflect year-end expenditures, as you might expect. And then over the fiscal year as a whole, we noticed a change in the ratio of total titles added compared with the number of items, because sometimes we buy multiples of a single title, and that ratio is changing because we did our due diligence and went back and looked at some of our standing orders for certain authors, where we would automatically order certain numbers of copies. And in some cases, we reduced those because of the indications of demand. So that's what's behind that shift. Also, the public is more and more able to access the physical inventory on the shelves more easily. It's more organized, it's more sort of transparent, because we are based on community usage and needs and statistical analyses. We are continuing to sort of right size that inventory and make sure the stuff on the shelves is the stuff that's actually getting used, so it is more findable. So you'll see that reflected in things like the number of items owned and the number of items withdrawn. Next slide, please. Okay, the next section is requests for information. So the June trends, we did see continued increases in the total requests for information and for our circulation customers. We wanted to comment that the youth services requests are likely impacted by a couple of things. One is just our tracking methodologies that change over time, and also because we are exploring different locations for our mobile desk throughout the main floor, and that may impact sort of the mix of customers and how they're identified as either youth or adults. So we're working on adjusting those methodologies as we move forward into the next fiscal year. And over the fiscal year as a whole, you will see here the impacts on the limitations on main floor services as it was closed and then opened with limited hours. So some of those numbers have been impacted overall. Next slide, please. Okay, the next section is about youth services. You will see in June continued increases in preschool tours and story times. And basically over the year as a whole, the simplest way is to say it, you can definitely see the impacts of COVID as we had to close the main floor and then reopen with limitations. Next slide, please. Okay, our electronic resources. June to June, our subscription resources, those searches were up 13% over last June. Across the fiscal year as a whole, the e-resource searches actually show some impacts of changes in classrooms, assignments, and instructions at the school level. So we are planning kind of a refresher outreach to the schools to reinvigorate use in those resources. Next slide, please. Okay, next one is program and outreach statistics. June represented the number of programs going up because of the Summer Discovery Challenge. And that also contributed to an increase in our public relations. And among those was numerous constant contact emails that we sent out to share about the SDC. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about program and outreach here. Across the fiscal year as a whole, I think it's important to remember that the community did have access to virtual, drive-through, pickup, and in-person experiences. Although overall the attendance decreased, the total number of programs increased. That was a lot of that was due to the daily connection we provided to the public through our read aloud events. So yes, things were tough because of those main floor limitations, but we still provided a lot of opportunities for the public that are both things are visible in the statistics there. Let's see here. We also, another thing we were able to do was continue to provide the fun and learning of story times at community services preschool. Also our youth advisory groups continued to meet. It was virtual, but they provided engagement and connectivity for that audience. Publication production did drop because we were simply not printing as much material for the public, right? And it's really the social media outlet changes in how they report. They just continue to be reflected in our metrics in a variety of ways. So next slide, please. So that takes you through the different sections of the report, sort of highlighting some of the things that you would see over the course of the fiscal year and in June. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question, Director Stone. Attendance being down, obviously, that makes perfect sense. I have a question about the number of social media posts being down year over year and the number of people reached via social media being down year over year. I'm referring to item number 3, page 12 in our packet. Oh, sorry, packet page number 37.
Let's see. Packet page 37.
At the bottom.
And okay. So 1.3 number of social media
Yes.
posts.
Yeah, being down year over year. And then just on the next page, right underneath that, the number of people being reached via social media.
Okay. Well, I have an understanding of that. I don't know. I know digital media specialist Greg is probably online, and I don't know if he would like to address that.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Hi. How can I help you?
I had a question regarding the number of social media posts being down year over year,
Okay.
and the number of people being reached via social media being down year over year. In-person attendance being down makes perfect sense during COVID times, but I'm just wondering that about those two statistics. Could you flesh them out a little bit, please?
Ellen, can you go back to, is there a slide on the?
It's in our pocket page number 37 and 38 in the board packets.
The packet.
Yeah, there's no slide on it. It's
There's no slide on it. Okay.
So, so Greg, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So it's what we're observing is that over the course of fiscal year 21 compared to fiscal year 20, the number of social media posts most recently was 175 versus 432 of the prior year. And then the number of people reached decreased by 64%. And my understanding is a couple of things. Well, first of all, that during the depths, if you will, of COVID, that a lot of the city's social media bandwidth was addressing that. And so there were not as many library specific posts. Plus, although we were active the whole time, obviously with the limited main floor and program activity, in addition to COVID taking main stage, we just didn't have as much to post. So that's my understanding of that piece. And then the reach would be that, first of all, there weren't as many posts, but also there's a lot happening in the background in the way the social media venues are offering their statistics. And I understand that that is impacting what appears to be the totals, even though it's really a background change in how it's being calculated. So Greg, did I get that generally right?
Yeah, and generally, yes. So it's the problem with the social media analytics, especially over the last year, is that there are a lot of things that can impact them, and it's tough to say exactly which one it is. Now, with that said, over the last year, because of COVID, let me preface all of this by saying that with social media, with the algorithm that a lot of people talk about with social media, especially with Facebook and Instagram, those two outlets specifically penalize posts that don't perform, that don't gather a lot of engagement and don't perform what we call perform well. And so if there isn't a lot of interaction with those particular posts, the algorithm for those accounts prevent those posts from being seen by other people.
Right.
And then that impacts posts down the road, additional posts. So what we saw through COVID is that certain content wasn't getting the engagement because people weren't out, they weren't online. There was kind of this fatigue about being online all the time. They were doing work online, they were doing school online, they were doing recreational activities online. And some of that impacted our social media overall. So there was a downturn across the board for the city's accounts. I'm going to say that impacted maybe the library a little bit heavier than some of the other departments, just because of the decrease in posts overall, but also the type of posts that we were putting out there. Some of the online activities that we were offering just weren't as, again, that fatigue, that online fatigue that kind of a lot of us are still experiencing. Even though it was awesome that we're still providing those services, it wasn't necessarily gathering the type of engagement that the in-person services normally gather for the library.
Okay, thank you for that. It's just a surprising number to see because the attendance on a lot of these online, like the Summer Discovery Challenge, was still very, very good. The numbers coming out of the library are still very robust.
And I'll be honest with you, a lot of that actual participation comes about through the hard work that staff does.
Yes.
In the one-on-one contacts that they make. So a lot of those phone calls, those Zoom calls, the emails, some of the face-to-face that we were still able to do when we were able to do it, a lot of the plaza activities that were done, those one-on-one contacts that staff were making with individuals is really a big reason why the participation continued to be what it was, because staff was making those personal relationships are invaluable, and it's social media just tries to be a facilitator of that, but we still rely on the personal relationship. So credit to staff for helping with the participation numbers all through last year.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to give a shout out to Greg here because he's online with us as our webmaster and Zoom, aficionado, and so it's probably a surprise for him to hear himself being called upon. So thank you, sir, for your grace. I appreciate that. Cindy, and I have to also say that tracking these statistics is kind of a library-wide team effort, and also going through them to assess what the trends are and what deserves sort of highlighting is definitely a project that Elke and Cindy contribute to greatly. Elke and Cindy, if you have anything that I misrepresented or that you would like to clarify, please jump in. But I just wanted to make sure I tipped my cap to you guys for all the work that you do on these. Any other questions I can answer?
Yes, I have questions. Okay, this one, since Greg is here and my first question is, what is the status or update on that Instagram account that someone had made for the library? Are we still working on getting it taken down? Are we like, where are we in that? Because we wouldn't want, if someone were to search Glendora Public Library on Instagram, that would be the first thing that pops up, but it's not an official account. It's not something that people should follow because we aren't posting anything there and that's not ours. So do we have an update on that?
Sounds like maybe we lost Greg. So I will find out about that and report back to all of you.
Oh, he's on.
I'm
Oh.
sorry.
He's on.
Yeah, we can't both unmute at the same time. LB and I are in the
We're
same
both
room.
clicking and muting each other and trying to unmute each other. So apologies.
Yeah, Trustee Chu, there's only so much we can do with Instagram. We have reached out to them. We're waiting to hear back. But technically that account's not doing anything wrong. So until they do something wrong, we're limited in the steps that we can take to either take control of that account or ask them to take that account down. So right now we're just we're waiting ourselves.
I see. Technically, they didn't do anything wrong. I think they're impersonating some organization. I think one thing that I don't know, have you looked into is like having people not block the account, but report the account. If it gets a certain number of people reporting it, it might get taken down faster. Is that something that we've looked into as well?
That's what I have instructed staff at the library to do, and the Friends Foundation as well. It's not something the city's gonna take a position on, that we're gonna ask people to unfollow Instagram accounts.
Right. Okay. My next question is regarding just the library's marketing plan in general. Is that something that we can make an agenda item on, that maybe we can have someone present to us what the library's plans are for marketing itself out to the public via, marketing tools such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and what that structure looks like?
Well, that's a complicated question. We're in the middle of putting together a communication plan overall for the city that would include the library as a department of the city. The conversation about specifics for marketing the library would follow the approval of the communication plan. It's not an answer that I have for you today, but as I have always, the position that we've always taken is that we welcome any input from the trustees and conversations that we have with Janet, and it's certainly a partnership in talking about our approach and any ideas that are out there that we can take a look at and kind of experiment with on social media. I'm certainly open to any ideas that are out there.
Okay, well, as soon as you guys, I know it probably will take some time, but when you guys do have that plan put together, I think it's something that maybe the board would be interested in learning more about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then my other question is for that stat, Janet, that you said that the library staff works on putting together a number of people reached via social media. How is that put together? Is this something that like Greg is providing to you guys based off of the accounts he manages?
Yes, that's correct. We get that statistic from Greg.
Okay, got it. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would it be appropriate to agendize that item so that we don't forget about it?
You can, yes, we can in the minutes direct staff or you can provide direction for staff to return upon completion of the communication plan, a report to the Library Board of Trustees.
Could we please do that so we don't forget about that marketing plan that trustees?
Yes, certainly we can do that. And then it would just need a second. You don't need a vote. So if you want to, I think Vice President Chu's the one that asked for that. And then if somebody can second, we can do that. And I'll make sure that it's noted in the minutes.
I'd like to second that, please.
Okay, so I will make sure to note that in the minutes and we will put that as staff direction.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, wait, one more thing. Janet, you had mentioned about the mobile component, the new furniture that we had asked or showed to the Friends Foundation, but I was wondering if you guys could also show the rest of the board what that looks like, because I think those look really cool, and yeah, people should know what to expect.
Absolutely, we can provide some images of that. How would it be if we did that in the next director and division report?
Yeah, that would be perfect. Thank you.
So that's another staff direction to return with what? I'm sorry?
Photos of the mobile desks. Is that what we're calling them? Mobile furniture.
Okay. That can be put under special items since there's no action that's going to be required after that, just a presentation. So that can be put as a special item. And next meeting would be okay. So we could do dates certain of the next meeting. Director Stone?
Yes, we do a department and division report every month, so we can roll that right in.
Got it. Thank you.
Director Stone, were those part of the grant proposals to the Friends Foundation, or was
That's
that
correct.
separate? Oh, okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, I will note that. Thank you.
So this was, as Elvia mentioned, a special item. So there's no action associated with this. And so if there are no further questions, that concludes this special item.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 4. The final budget accounting report for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Director Stone.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. Okay, so this is another table that is available in your packet and available online. And it's just a way of showing you how we wrapped up fiscal year 2021 and just pulled out a few highlights. I want to tip my cap to Elke, who is sort of our main flagger of things that may need some highlighting. So just a few comments. First of all, in general, there are a lot of what I would consider to be sort of personnel related expenses, including things like workers' comp and retirement that really aren't under our control throughout the fiscal year. So you may see some fluctuations in those that are beyond our control. If you note our postage expenditures, those were impacted by, I'm happy to say, actually several very large mailings that not happy to say that COVID necessitated them, but they were able to reach a lot of customers by mail regarding the items that they had out while we were closed. Next slide, please. Okay, bank charges. You will see this, you might note this, and it's related to our upcoming installation of e-commerce, ability to pay by credit card. And because of pandemic related delays on the vendor side, that has not yet been implemented. So that's why you see see our bank charges lagging behind, you might say. And contract services, That encumbrance that you see there is because we were looking at some small scale shade solutions on the plaza. And as we look at what the plaza can handle, engineering wise and structurally, we were not able to use those funds. So we asked for those to be carried over into the next fiscal year. Next slide, please. Okay, building materials. There's several of these other categories were impacted by the pandemic in a variety of ways. So some of them weren't needed because the main floor was closed. Others were not available or on back order. We had, in some cases, reduced staff resources to be able to pursue some projects that would have called on those funds. In some cases, those expenses were handled directly by Public Works because of the pandemic. And in other cases, we had some no cost options available to us because of special circumstances. So, so you'll see a variety of impacts across some of those expenditure lines, budget lines. Next slide, please. Okay, across divisions, the full and part-time vacancies that we have affected what you're seeing in the regular part-time PERS and benefits lines, just because we are, the way we are deploying staff to try and fill some gaps. And when you see that line item that says temporary in lieu of perm, it's a little obscure in terms of budget documents, but basically those are expenses from for our temporary librarian assistants. So temporary assistance in lieu of permanent, and it's that is indeed temporary. We are not suggesting that we are not going to hire anybody permanent in those cases, but we're helping to fill the gaps with different contract workers. Next slide, please. Okay, so you may see note some things under what we call operating leases. And basically, if you look at administration and development, we have those expenses split out by a standing percentage, and we're still working with finance on adjusting that formula so that you may note some things there between those two divisions on operating leases. And in the 229 accounts that you see that begin with that number, those are grant funding, and they already reflect our carryovers from some unspent grant funds, carryovers to the next fiscal year. And then that very long specialized account number 72000.1, just in case you're wondering, is related to expenses for the adult literacy program. Next slide, please. So I think those are touch on some of the things that you may notice as you have flipped through these pages of budget and expenditures. So if you have any questions, Cindy, Elke, and I are happy to answer those. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No comments? Okay. Thank you, Director Stone. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to comment on items 5 through 9? Seeing no one. Deputy City Clerk?
Thank you. Yes, at this time, I'd like to call a motion to approve consent calendar items 5 through 9.
Also move.
That was from President Tolan?
Yes.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll
Second,
second.
I heard President Blum first. Quick on the trigger there, Trustee Landman. Okay, and I'm going to take a roll call vote. Trustee Blum,
aye.
Trustee Landman,
Aye.
Trustee Flowers is absent by Vice President Chu
Aye.
and President Toland.
Aye.
And consent calendar passes 4-0-1. Thank you.
We'll move on to the board agenda items. Item 10. Oh, this one's a fun one. Discussion of the 50th anniversary of the current facility for the Glendora Public Library. Director Stone.
Thank you. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so as this is really a conversation that that was inspired by the board, and so I'll be turning it over to the board. I just wanted to review a couple of things to provide ideas to bounce off of, if you will. So first of all, just going through the goals that have already been presented to you that I have proposed earlier for celebrating the 50th anniversary at this address. Again, it's an anniversary of the building, not of the library, which has been around for much longer. So because of the anniversary of the building, we intend that the community will be reintroduced to the brick and mortar library as a hub for information, entertainment, and connection. That the community will see the library building as one component of a service package that also includes opportunities out in the community, at home, and online. The community will learn about library projects to capture, preserve, and share the community's own resources of local history. Next slide, please. And two more goals that had already been presented to you. Because of the anniversary, we intend that the community will reconnect with community members, fellow volunteers, and staff that enriched their world of ideas over the last half century, and also that the community will gain a greater understanding of the role of the library building itself, its challenges and needs, and ways that the public can help develop the library building's future. Next slide, please. So as we consider how to plan the celebration of the 50th anniversary at 140 South Glendora, there are several considerations we need to keep in mind the whole time. First of all, especially because we're so looking forward to any participation the library board would like to offer, we need to be aware of Brown Act compliance. We need to make sure that whatever partners are involved, that there's ongoing guidance from library management and administration, and that we sort of structure that in at the beginning. Because we are so lucky in our city's media specialists, we just need to be conscious of other demands on their time and to factor that in. Also, in terms of representing the city as a government agency, we need to be conscious the whole time of the roles of the official and unofficial messaging and official and unofficial outlets for information regarding the celebration. Finally, whatever we pursue in all of our teams is in direct contribution to the goals that had been presented above. So next slide, please. So the idea here tonight is to just start your discussion about how we might plan this 50th anniversary of the library building. This is a jumping off point, this table, and basically it's been built using the different categories of funding that we requested from the Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation with regard to the celebration. And as part of that discussion, the Friends Foundation expressed a great interest in also assisting with the planning. So we see a breakdown of the different kinds of not just events, but other aspects from giveaways to media projects, to printing, to branding, decorations, programs, that sort of thing, and some suggestions about ways to think about how the teams could be made up to work on those. Now, the board obviously is here to discuss this evening, also because the Friends Foundation is a potential partner in all of it. They definitely are a partner, and could be an even greater one in all of this. We have with us tonight the executive director of the Friends Foundation, Maggie Lara, and she can tell us a little bit about the foundation's perspective on all of this. So if I can turn it over briefly to Maggie.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to this issue. And as has been mentioned throughout the meeting tonight, the foundation is excited about the opportunities for partnership and collaboration. And while we do not intend to tread on any space or areas, or even in designing specific projects to for this celebration, we wouldn't want to take that away from the library. We really see us as a support and as a funding source, and with access, I think, to resources that often may fall out of the scope of the library itself. So with some of our board members having skills in the marketing and event planning, and also in the promotion side, I think there's definitely skills that we can bring to the table. And I think for us, it's really framing within the context of the library strategic plan overall. We see this as a great opportunity to position the needs of the library with the messaging we put out into the community regarding how people can participate in supporting those needs financially. Looking at the needs that the library has set forth for this, potentially for this next year, for 2021-22, it's nearing $400,000. And that does include a portion that is carried over from 2021. And so we see it as an opportunity to really combine the messaging that in celebrating the 50 years of the building, that the library's needs are still great, and that we can come along and partner with them and invite our community partners to engage and participate with funding and other ways of donating to that message. So while we don't want to overrun, we clearly see that this is a great time for the collaboration and partnership to be really highlighted, and for the foundation and library's relationship to take center stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Maggie, and thank you for being here with us tonight. We may have, some questions. So we appreciate you and of course, everything the foundation does. So again, this table that's here and in your report is really just a jumping off point. Next slide, please. Our formal recommendation for this agenda item is simply to discuss the 50th anniversary of the current library facility and to provide staff direction as necessary. So given that, if I may, I will turn it back over to our president, and we'll be happy to take part in the discussion or answer any questions and make notes on how you would like us to proceed in the future.
Thank you, Director Stone. Do we have any questions at this time from the trustees? Trustee Landman, Trustee Blum?
Yeah, how would we go about getting on one of the little mini boards, to work on the celebration?
So that's a good question about like the first item there, the general celebratory events, where the board would work with the Friends Foundation.
Yeah. So would we like volunteer and then get voted on, or we just?
So could we go back a slide, please? So really, the discussion about these mini committees or task forces or anything like that, that is what we are here to ask you. Is this how you would like to proceed? Does this breakdown make sense? Are these areas where you think that the board and the foundation and the city staff should be represented? Does this, and if not, I mean, to to develop this jumping off point. And then, I mean, the city clerk can certainly keep us in line in terms of the Brown Act and how the board participates. But overall, that's going to come out from your discussion, who's going to be on what. The bylaws do indicate that the president largely appoints committee members, but I'm sure that collectively, in terms of your discussion and your actions, that you can approach that differently if you choose to do that as a board. Again, in terms of Brown Act, I know that the city clerk's office will sort of keep us in line, so that it's really up to you. If you like this breakdown and how you would like to move forward.
Well, one idea is with the board getting together with the Friends Foundation, obviously. Maggie, thank you for being here tonight. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I think several of us are really excited about the 50th, as are you. And for example, Trustee Flowers, we're lucky, he's president of the Historical Society. And so he has many contacts there that may help with fundraising or putting things together for the library. Trustee Landman's, active in the community. She has many, many contacts as well. Should board members, in your opinion, should we be reaching out to our contacts in the city directly on support for the library? Should we work that through the Friends Foundation? What do you think?
I'll defer to Janet as she's your, contact with the city. But having said that, for our own organization, it really is in those one-on-one contacts that makes the difference. For example, what we saw as we moved forward in creating all of these hybrid events and still engaging our sponsors, it was those relationships that help us maintain certain levels of our fundraising, while staff absolutely can go out and present the message. It really is in those follow-up connections that each of our board members has, in engaging people and really inspiring them to give. The work of the library is so well done that it's an easy sell, and from that standpoint, the library is beloved in the community as well as its staff. And we feel like our role is to help shine a light on that, but it's definitely those personal relationships that we find are most important in engaging the community and then really calling them to action. We may have what we saw through COVID, while a lot of organizations didn't have a lot of engagement, we saw our engagement increase. And I won't say it was like 2,000%, but for a small community organization, we saw it increase significantly. And more importantly, those longtime donors saw us still engaged in the community and have approached us for different types of fundraising opportunities that they want to give back. So, but from the city side, I would defer to Janet on that.
Thank you. And I think it's important to sort of parse out, there are several different kinds of things we're talking about here. The recommended way, if there is such, for trustees, for sort of official representatives of the city, the recommended way for them to support specifically fundraising and donor development, that is a different discussion than the trustees and city officials' support of like advocacy of the library and sort of marketing of the library, which would be slightly different from trustee and city official support of this event and the different tasks that are involved with moving this event forward. So I think it's pretty it's important that we understand exactly what role we are talking about for the trustees, because they're going to be different best practices depending on each of those. I would say if the trustees are actively interested in what's possible in terms of supporting specifically fundraising and donor development, that we probably need to have a separate discussion with the city. It could be a public meeting, but with separate discussion with the city about what's appropriate and what for a city official and how that works, and if there are any limitations or anything like that, so that that we can have a very specific discussion about soliciting funds from from the public at large. If it comes to how to reach out, say that you want to do a general celebratory event, and you would really like to involve some of the service clubs around here or something else, then that would be a different kind of best practice, right? And I think there's a little bit more freedom in terms of reaching out to your contacts for that.
Yeah, and just so that I can clarify, yeah, my intention was not to encourage the Board of Trustees in the fundraising aspect. We take that role on and we do it, enthusiastically, but it's really just to the point that your connection in the community itself, from the marketing of the library or advocacy, is an important part. And just as an, I guess, an exclamation to the role that you already know you play, we see that play out importantly, I know, for our board as well.
Thank you, Maggie. I didn't sense any kind of of suggestion in that way. I wasn't concerned about that. I just wanted to make sure we were really addressing whatever specific question it is that you have, President Toland, in terms of exactly what kind of advocacy we're really and contact development we're really talking about here. So we can arrange for whatever you'd like, depending on the specific flavor of that.
I'm not going to say this well, so I'll open it up to the other trustees. But where I'm coming from on this is we're all very lucky to be sitting here on the board with the 50th coming up. And I think we'd all love the library, want to do something special and be part of that next year. So what would be the appropriate way for the board to participate, if any, in the 50th? So would it be the fundraising? I agree. The Friends Foundation does a great job at that. That's probably not where we would look to step in unless somebody else had a different opinion. But in terms of having the community organizations contribute in some way to a 50th celebration, I think we're lucky enough that we have very well-connected trustees that can help with that.
If I may make a suggestion, I think it's easier to wrap one's head around that question if you're thinking about those contacts in terms of a specific task. So the way you would reach out to the Historical Society or to Rotary or to whatever agency we're talking about, I think it's easier to make those considerations if you know whether you're talking about planning a reception in the Bidwell Forum, whether you're talking about doing some sort of media project that produced some sort of video celebrating the 50th at this address. If you're talking about working on a local history connection, I think each task, whether or not it's this exact list or not. I think if you decide what tasks are involved, then it's a little easier for everybody to wrap their minds around what contacts would be of most support, because it might be different for each aspect of the celebration, right? And it has the potential to be kind of a multi-part project. So that's just my observation.
Maggie, I'm sorry if this isn't to be asked at this time, but is the Friends Foundation, are they looking to do something in addition to Night on the Plaza next year? Something specifically for the 50th?
Not specifically, but it would clearly flavor the type of fundraising and the structure that we're doing. We're looking at doing some micro fundraising. So those are some of the initiatives. And so we'd like our messaging to collaborate with what the library is doing. I know for some of our projects, we recognize, volunteers that you're donating your time, and as staff, oftentimes it's easier when we throw stuff on the wall and then volunteers can react to those items, and then kind of build upon those items. And that's what we've seen with some of our fundraising activities. And so I know our executive board, who has had the initial peek at the grant request, were really excited about that potential when they saw that celebration as part of the request, and excited about what that could look like. I think one of the things the board does well is kind of think outside the box. And so I think they bring that to the table and challenge us in the office to move beyond that box oftentimes. So we'd like to support that, but it definitely will be a flavor that we see throughout our messaging for fundraising and events. But absolutely, if an idea comes from the library staff and the board come and they look as the foundation being a partner to that, we would love to partner with that.
Thank you. Do any of the other trustees have?
I wanted to say something. I think it would be a really great opportunity to have something in addition to Night on the Plaza. But unless that's, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the library structure. However, I don't know the amount of time and planning required to set that up. And would there be enough time to plan it for February, or would it be a different date? Maggie, would you have any idea?
Yeah, we haven't thrown any specific dates on our calendar. I guess the caveat is that we're more identifying the season. So in the fall, there's specific events we'd like to see. And then in the new year, there's a certain timing for certain events that we like to see. And so definitely those type of events, they wouldn't be at the scale that the Night on the Plaza is. It's really more of what we call this micro fundraising. And so these smaller, intimate events, partnering with our community and business and organization partners that have sometimes an inherent interest, like you mentioned, the Historical Society and other groups like the Women's Club, who started some natural relationships, and then creating and also inviting those that are still somewhat new, but are looking for opportunities to introduce themselves into to the community. So we're looking for those type of seasonal events. How the structure of them, we've got an idea, but not a solid, this is what it's going to be and this is the date we're looking at.
I'm sorry if we're putting you on the.
No, no, these are definitely some conversations that Jenna and I have, just as we've talked about in when the grant requests were submitted, we have some questions just so that there's an understanding that we can share. And, we see that the best product comes from those kinds of discussions. And the more that we can have them in the open forum, I think is the best way to handle it. So there's definitely conversations that we have to just kind of clarify and to share what our intentions are. So.
Director Stone, is there anything planned for February by the city or by the library?
So, that is exactly what we are here to talk about tonight. So, we made several sort of tracks have been happening at once. The staff made a grant proposal to the Friends Foundation. Wrote up some general expenditure areas. They roughly reflect what you see on the screen here. And sort of alongside of that, the library board expressed an interest in being involved in helping with that. And then also the Friends Foundation had this wonderfully positive response and offered assistance and an interest in participating in that. So, one thing we realized, we proposed some, a certain kind of structure of funding based on several things like, past events, our experience with Summer Discovery Challenge, some information that the foundation provided us, and that sort of thing. And that's how we put together that list. Depending on the expectations and the interest of size and extent of the celebrations, the library staff may not have the resources personnel-wise to provide the gala that would be most exciting from the board and or foundation's perspective. So because the board had already asked for this to be agendized, we wanted to come back and say that, depending on the scope that you are interested in, we really, we may need the board and the foundation to take an active boots on the ground, decide whether we're going to have something in February and put together some plans for that. Checking in with the library staff and with the city media specialists as they're available, and grow that. So we can, the library staff can, take direction, go away and decide about a February event and another package of things. Just be aware that depending on the expectation of how robust this is going to be, we may not be able to produce what you could produce if the trustees and the foundation sort of took the lead in the ways that it kind of shows on this table. So that's exactly what we're here to talk about tonight, is how we go about deciding, okay, are we going to have a big event in February and what's that going to be like? Not that we have to decide it tonight, but we have to decide, okay, who's going to take that on so that they can flesh out that idea and then and share it with the parties and make it happen.
Has the staff done much brainstorming about this? Have they talked about it much? My thought is I have no creativity with this stuff. And so if the staff they're pretty creative, and if they have ideas, and if they might bring them to us or to whomever, and there could be some consensus about which ideas would be best. Do we want to have something big? Do we want to have several small things? Do we want to have whatever? But we apparently have no focus right now. So if we could have somebody who has more creativity than I do, bring us ideas, I think that would be very helpful.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would it be appropriate for 2 or 3 trustees to meet with the Friends Foundation to see what their appetite would be on taking on something like this? It's a volunteer organization. We know that they have limited bandwidth. But would that be something appropriate to do?
President Tomoko, she had to step away just for a quick second. She'll be back in just a second.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry about that.
No. Thank you. I'm just concerned about the library with their limited bandwidth as well, having to come up with some ideas to present to the board, as opposed to the board working with either staff or the Friends Foundation on what we could help with. Because I think the library and the Friends Foundation know what their bandwidth is.
Sure.
But as individual board members, what could we help with?
I really want to help. And I don't know, just let me know what I need to do and I'll go and work in that section. I really, really want to help. And also I wanted to point out too, I kind of found just the address kind of catchy. I don't know if that's what your end goal was, but that's pretty clever. You are celebrating the building, and I don't know. That's just my thought. But I really want to help. Let me know, what area I could help in. I don't know if Elvia came back.
Yes, I apologize. Had to make a quick run to the restroom. I'm back. There was a question?
Would it be appropriate for 2 or 3 trustees or however many trustees to meet with the Friends Foundation to see what type of appetite they would have if we contributed, if we helped by reaching out to our community, the folks that we know in the community, to help put something together, specifically maybe a February event, specifically for something like that?
So anytime you have you have more than 2 of you meeting with anybody on behalf of the Library Board of Trustees, it would have to be agendized and it would have to be available to the public. It'd be a meeting. So it's probably advisable for there to be 2 people appointed to meet and report back to the library board in whatever way you deem necessary. It doesn't necessarily have to come in a way that that is formal to get an updated report. You can say, to report via email. And if there's any determination to be made by the board, then you're going to agendize it and bring it back at this date for an approval. So technically you can't really conduct you can't have action items that approve anything via email. It has to be something that's agendized. However, a report, can be given in whatever manner you wish to receive it, either by Janet in her regular director's report, in your agendized, you've got the board agenda items. You could put this back on as unfinished business as a regular report that's going to be brought out. And then at some point you would ask for an action from the board to approve the, event, whatever it is. So the bottom line is no more than 2 of you can, unless you want to agendize it, right? And you can appoint those 2 to participate. And then once you come back, you can discuss further when you come up, I guess, with what the options are going to be that you'd like to present, and then the discussion would happen with the board.
I'm just thinking, Trustee Blum, in the interest of time, since we're already here in September and February's right around the corner and we're coming up to the holidays, what's the most efficient way to try to put something together, if that's what we're looking to do?
February seems very soon.
Yes. Yeah.
And with what's going on with what's going on with COVID, hard to know exactly where we're going to be at any time.
That's a very good point.
So, yeah, and in that light, I don't know, maybe smaller
Right.
things through the year might be better.
Mhm. Maybe February, just some type of acknowledgement, though. I think
Yeah.
I'd like to put something together, right? Like we would like to do something, some type of acknowledgement.
Sure.
Because the date is February 28th, if for the date that the doors opened of the library, if that
Okay.
helps, because it's almost March. I don't know if you want to think of it that way. I don't know how long it usually takes to plan things, plan major events. Dr. Stone or Maggie or anybody have an idea?
No, I don't have any idea of how much time it takes to plan an event. I'm sure it's a lot, but instead of like what an idea that I've kind of envisioned is having like a sort of birthday party for the library. And this event doesn't have to be like super big and drastic like a fundraiser, but you know, examples like the year-end party for the summer reading club that that usually happens in end of July, early August. I think something as simple or, well, at least as something like that, where we invite the community to come to the Bidwell and we have tables out with different activities and different things for the community to look at about the library would be a good way to celebrate it. And I feel maybe that is more feasible if we just had some sort of there's no designated time. It's just kind of an all-day event. People just drop in when they can, and they can learn more about the library and how it's impacted and affected everyone's lives around here.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
And getting some of the other, oh, sorry.
it could be something that would kick off something that would last a year.
Yes, that's a great idea. And getting some of the other community organizations involved, maybe being able to reach out to Rotary or the Historical Society of the Women's Club, having, making sure they have a presence there as well.
Director, are the signs going to be up by then? The library signs?
The library signs. Oh, the
Yeah.
marquees? We do
Marquees.
not have a timeline yet for there's a budget for a marquee, and I don't have a timeline for that, if that's
Well,
what
there's the inside signage.
again, also no timeline.
Okay.
So we have no idea when we will be introducing this to the community, this not concept, but event.
Oh, we're talking, I think that Trustee Blum is talking specifically about some budgeted items that have to do with not 50th at 140 celebration signs, but quite literally some additions to the library interior signage and exterior signage.
Yes.
Like just standing projects. And
Yes.
and we do not we don't have timelines for. Elke, I'm chime in if you know something I'm not remembering, but
You're correct. There's no timeline yet.
So for those things, yeah, we don't know how they would interface with these celebrations.
Probably not.
Also, there's the Christmas parade, or in December, and the library has an entry, right? Or no? Are you in it, Dr. Stone?
I am not. Cindy, would you like to talk about how sometimes the library's been represented? And
Sure.
actually also Maggie?
So the library over the past years, I want to say at least 5 years, the Battle of the Books winners and frequently the second place team have been in a car, like in a truck, driving through the parade, and that's how the library has been a part of it. In addition to the Friends Foundation also has frequently an entry. Maggie?
Well, maybe, perhaps a banner could be hung or held by the Battle of the Books people and the Friends Foundation as well. Just a suggestion, because you could reach a lot of people at that event.
Yes, it's certainly something to keep in mind. We'll put it in the pot.
Okay.
And I don't know where it should be in all this, but I do think that probably there are some Friends Foundation members who were there when the library opened, and I think they should be contacted to see if they would have any way to participate. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we should definitely, I don't know if this was in a dream or if we talked about this before, but having a call out to the community and asking them to contribute. I don't know, I think you guys were saying some like community history project. Yeah, community-based history project and media projects. Maybe we can have a display case showing photos from the community of themselves. I mean, I don't know how many people take pictures at the library. I know I did a few times, but pictures at the library or just things that they can contribute, maybe an old library, their old library card, which you guys probably have, but like artifacts of the library within the last 50 years and having that on display. And it could also draw people in because they would, of course, want to see their own things on display in the library, and then having them probably donated to the library to keep there in the library to look at every single day when people walk in.
So it does sound like we have an appetite to do something here for February as a board, right?
Yes.
We did individually try to contribute something in order to get something done here. Maggie, is this something that we can work through you on what type of appetite the Friends Foundation would have to do something maybe small in February, just as some type of acknowledgement? Is that something that?
Yeah, I think we definitely have events that are not completely fleshed out, but definitely during that time of year, as well as we have our trivia, which obviously would be a great platform for celebrating a portion of that. But again, I guess I would defer to Janet and her team for that, and us collaborating, for those types of things. I know when we've had anniversary celebrations, the library has been so good as coming alongside and helping us brainstorm ideas that can really highlight, the celebratory side of those types of milestones. And I think, we definitely could do that and contribute towards that. And so I guess I would just defer to Janet and her team as far as outlining those specific timelines of, bringing all the people together and brainstorming and coming up with, the highlighted 10 things you want to do, whether it's, between now and next June or now and, December 2022. I think they have the skills to make that happen. Similar to how we do that for our events. So, and whatever role we can play with that, absolutely. So that's a long-winded yes, I guess. I apologize for that.
So yeah, thank you, Maggie. So the reason for the breakdown that's in the table that you see on the screen is because of this wonderful sort of variety of ideas that each of you has, and that an option to specifying 2 library board members who would then sort of do that exploratory meeting with I'm assuming not only the foundation, but with representatives from the library, and if there's time for them, the digital media folks. But so as opposed to just saying, okay, these 2 trustees sort of become that team, which is a totally viable option, but having picked up on this kind of this richness of ideas, like just happened with like the different banners and the different local history and the different kinds of things in February, offered this breakdown to say another way of doing it is to for different groups of people to work on different aspects of this throughout the year. So if somebody had a particular interest in making sure that there was, say, a video, that there would be a task force to do that thing. And then there might be 2 different people to work on this idea of a reception or a birthday party whenever they recommended it would be, and that would be different again from the people who are working on the sort of like more concrete local history project. So I'm open to anything. It's just sort of to be able to move forward, we need to understand whether or not there are going to be a couple of trustees appointed to have a larger conversation about the whole package of things with the foundation and with library staff and so on, or whether we want to find opportunities for different pairs of trustees and the foundation and the board to work on different aspects of the project. That could come later. But again, as we all recognize that to get started sooner, there are different ways of approaching this. And a third completely different way is, if you are happy with the scale of things that the library staff would be able to produce, then you're also welcome to say, come to us with your ideas. Just be prepared that if we are the generating main body of that it may not be to the scale as if you all are kind of the originators of some of these particular, if they're not all events, but some of these aspects of the celebration. So any of those flavors is fine. This is exactly what we're here to talk about tonight is what kinds of teams do you want to be on, or do you want to turn this back over to the library to work on a different scale?
Well, I really want to help. So I know that, and I would love to help. And I think it's very important to have board members like on board, to celebrate this huge event. So I'm very excited about it. So I will volunteer for whatever spot.
Thank you. So could we have 2 board members meet separately with Maggie and with Director Stone and her staff to determine what type of appetite we have and how, bandwidth we could put towards this, and that sort of thing? Do you think that would be appropriate?
I would be willing to be somebody. I would be willing to volunteer. Yes.
Thank you. Trustee True or Trustee Blum, would you like to participate?
As I said, I'm not the creative person around here.
Okay. I'm happy to do it if Trustee Chu, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, then if it's all right with Maggie and Director Stone, Trustee Landon and I will work with you separately on some ideas and what's feasible.
Might it be appropriate for the other trustees to submit ideas?
That's right.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I liked Trustee Chu's idea about the birthday party. That's great.
Yeah, I assume there are ideas there's 1 or 2 in my head, so I assume there are 6 or 8 in other people's heads. I do wonder if maybe submitting ideas and give us some time to think about it and put those ideas in the email or wherever as the other 2 folks go about this.
Great idea.
Elvia, can you help us with the most appropriate way to do that in terms of the Brown Act?
Yes, certainly. So at this point, no emails to the group can be sent without it being agendized and calling it a meeting. So
Okay.
probably the best route is to make this a staff direction, right? Or direction for President Tolan to have two members, herself and Trustee Landman, and director and staff to meet with the Glendora Public Library Friends Foundations for an exploratory and brainstorming meeting to develop a plan for the 50th event for events next year, and for trustees to submit ideas to Director Stone. So that way you're all in the clear, there's no issues with the Brown Act, and it's a directive. And so then the only thing is to have a cutoff that Director Stone can give you prior to that meeting date, you know, so that ideas to be submitted by a date given by Director Stone, so that she can then communicate with you, have your ideas by this date, as soon as she can coordinate availability with all the attendees to that meeting.
Excellent.
Okay, so that will be noted then. The only thing that I don't see here is that if you would like to return with an update at a future meeting, where would it be appropriate? Is this something that the director can report on after the meeting as part of the director's report? I'm assuming, depending on whether or not you have actions that you're going to want out of this, you can either put it on an agenda for unfinished business, because this is an ongoing, or you can put it as here's information, we're still working on it, don't have anything that requires an action at this point. So that can be left to Director Stone to determine based on how far you get in your exploratory meeting.
Good.
Maggie, are you okay with all of that?
Yes, and would probably add that it may be myself and then maybe an additional board member or volunteer. So we appreciate the opportunity to work with everyone. So thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for your continued support. We're excited. Okay.
So at this point, just because we did have some action that we took in this one, I'd like a motion in order to ratify the appointment of the two members to be participating in the exploratory meeting. Is there a motion?
Also move.
That was very quiet. Who was that?
Oh, me.
President Tolan, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Vice President Chu. Great. And we can receive and file this report at this point. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Trustee Blum,
Aye.
Trustee Landman,
Aye.
Trustee Flowers is absent, Vice President Chu,
Aye.
and President Toland.
Aye.
And that passes 401. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 11, unfinished business, the strategic plan review session report. Director Stone?
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So just a couple of contextual pieces before we go through the slides here. One is just a refresher that the strategic plan review session was conducted this past May of 2021 in the Legion Hall it's a public meeting. The board was there, city manager was there, city clerk's office was represented, the Friends Foundation was represented. We had some library staff there as well. And basically we took the opportunity to review the library strategy that was launched in April 2018. So what we are doing tonight is presenting to you the report that we put together based on that session. Okay, so that just to sort of wrap our heads around exactly what we're talking about this evening. Another thing I want to mention is that in the course of putting together this PowerPoint and reviewing everything and thinking about some of the questions that really great questions that have been raised. Trustee Vice President Chu brought up one of these recently, which is, are the responsibilities on which the strategy is based, are those, up for refresh and, that sort of thing at any specific time. And I think the best, upon reflection, I think the vocabulary here is a little bit confusing, and we have a unique product and it's hard to describe. So here's probably the best way to think about it. These 8 responsibilities, and we'll be talking more about those as we present this plan, those are what we could probably consider the strategic framework. Okay, that's the framework. They are meant to be enduring. They are meant to, we might have to tweak them to make them more communicable, but the idea is that those are going to stand for quite a while. Then the things that we often think of as the strategic plan, like what we are going to do as the library, those are the strategic responses that come out of that framework. So as we look at those 8 responsibilities, then we're going to identify the responses that we make to the public as we move along that address whatever is the most pressing need at the time. So for example, during COVID, one of the most pressing needs was to get that world of ideas in close proximity, make it nearby for the public when we were all distanced, right? So that was easy. That was, slam dunk. We know we need to do this. So that responsibility rose to the top, and that became our strategic response. So it really isn't a strategic plan in the traditional sense. And I think that back in 2018, that is one of the things that the library board embraced. And I'm still trying to find, because it's unique, I'm still trying to find the right language to talk about it. So it's probably best as we move forward, and I'll try to learn to practice this, that we have a strategic framework and we have some strategic responses. At the time of this meeting, we talked about it as a strategic plan review to go over that framework and what was being done. But let's maybe start differentiating those as we go forward. And I hope that helps clarify like the moving parts like Brianna was interested in, and the foundational parts that we may adjust for understanding, but that hopefully are sort of more enduring. Okay, so as I mentioned, this strategy, the strategic framework, was launched in April of 2018. We identified some enduring public library responsibilities. They're not just the Glendora Public Library, but theoretically libraries, public libraries as a whole. They are already being used to lay the path for new partnerships in the community, to communicate with the community. We're doing it more and more in terms of those responsibilities, in wording them and expressing them in different ways, but based on those responsibilities. We're restructuring our reporting and our communications and our training, and they are also being used to help us prepare for new staffing structures. So all of that is already happening based on that strategic framework that was launched in April of 2018. Next slide, please. So over the course of time, we've come back over and over and over talking about different aspects of the strategic framework, how it was going, what the challenges were, what contents were, our responses, our strategic responses, and the discussion elements with the board over that time have included many things, including surveys, partnerships, presentations, and environmental scanning. And I want to mention that the surveys part of this and the environmental scanning, that idea of the dialogues with the community that help us identify what response is needed right away, that the fresh part that I think Brianna was after, that's something that we are working hard to develop, and is something that we really feel we'll be able to launch as a more cultural and systemic thing in the library when we have a more fleshed out management team with fewer vacancies than we have at the moment. But we recognize that those responses and keeping those fresh is very important. We've also discussed developments made to the responsibilities. They have already sort of been tweaked and massaged for ease of understanding since they were introduced in April of 2018. That's been happening. They also discussed the impacts of staff time and overall timelines, what different things in the city and libraries environment are impacting how the strategic framework and strategic responsibilities are developing. And then we've also talked about how they've been used to restructure reports, communications, and are looking toward them helping with our organizational structure in the future. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick rundown of what those 8 responsibilities are. They are that we need to provide access to the world of ideas for a physically and neurologically diverse community. These are in no particular order, by the way. That we need to promote a greater understanding of accuracy, perception, and influence when it comes to information in the world of ideas. That we need to find enduring methods for accessing the world of ideas and its products. We need to find ways for the public to participate in the world of ideas through all stages of life and bring the world of ideas geographically closer to them. We need to provide an organized world of information when the larger world is chaotic. We need to address that there are limited material and energy resources, and also that we need that the world of ideas is cognitive property, and we need to secure that the best we can for the public. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit more background. In May of 2021, the Board of Library Trustees held a special public meeting. This is the one I just mentioned earlier in the Legion Hall, with the city manager, city clerk, Friends Foundation, library staff, and we reviewed what we called at the time the strategic plan. We reviewed that strategic framework and the strategic responses so far. And that included updates and discussion and feedback about finances, budget, grant support, city strategic framework, responsibilities themselves, partnerships, successes and challenges that we were facing, our needs and what hurdles we had to overcome, and also the 50th anniversary of the current library building. Next slide, please. All right, so out of that special meeting, what we are presenting tonight in your packet and online and everywhere is this inventory of 31 strategic objectives or tasks or strategic responses. There are some that are subset of others, so there are some overlaps among those 31. And those include the citywide strategic plan objectives. They include elements from the approved city budget. And they also, the inventory also mentioned ideas suggested by the Board of Library Trustees and other participants at that meeting. So this is intended to incorporate all of that stuff, as that was sort of all part of the discussion. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the format of the inventory. If you look at the citywide strategic plan that's on the website, this is meant to, we borrowed from that structure. It's meant to evoke that. They look very similar. So we have some of the city strategic plan goal names in there, as well as some of our library goal names and descriptions. We've listed some goal details, examples of steps and tasks needed to be completed. Some of this stuff, and we've made it visible in the report, is lifted directly from the citywide strategic plan. Notes on dependencies where we're reliant on certain kind of funding or timing, other agencies, that kind of thing. Note that as with the city's plan, certain of these projects will carry over multiple years. This is not like a one-year snapshot. These are a variety of responses to our standing strategic framework. The items may represent a new program or a staff assignment that will impact work over the foreseeable future. So, everything, has puts other things in motion or can slow other things from being in motion. And finally, we made sure to make notes on the questions and ideas that were raised for staff during the strategic plan or strategic framework review session. Next slide, please. All right, so I just want to make a note here that that this inventory is not meant to be a complete list of expected library activities. This is not like everything we're hoping to do. If it's, the Board of Library Trustees packet each month is really a more complete record of the depth and the breadth of the daily opportunities that we offer to the public. And that report also periodically records the administrative elements that makes those opportunities possible. So just be aware that 31 is a lot, because a lot of these are major things in the inventory. But if you see something that is happening that's not on there, it's not like it's not going to get done. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some highlights. Rather than, you were all at the meeting and we spent, half a day going through that. So rather than spend another half a day reiterating all that, I'll just capture some of the highlights in a review of what you should see in that inventory document. So one of the things that actually arose live and in real time at that meeting was this idea of exploring with the city clerk options for developing the boards, commissions, and civic engagement, like how to bring people in, and also how to use the boards and commissions to outreach and to educate the community. So that was a great thing that arose from that day, and that's in the inventory. Also, you'll see there that as part of the city, we're going to be working on recapturing lost revenues from COVID-19 and offsetting increased expenditures. And there are lots of different ways that that's going to be happening, including our participation in helping to guide whatever ARPA funds are coming to the library. And you saw a little table inserted into that inventory of what was presented to council in terms of those federal funds. Next slide, please. So it bears pointing out that when I'm talking about highlights here, is that that although they may not be specific to the library may not be the lead, there are a lot of city efforts which will take our time and expertise and our support. And among those are the comprehensive fee study that's on the city's list, the updated community survey that's coming up, the memorandum of understanding with the Glendora Unified School District. It updates to the administrative manual for the city, supporting the vision and development plans for the Village and Gold Line. And also, as you've heard, there's going to be this new communication strategic plan. And obviously, we need to help support that in whatever way we can. So all of those things are going to be part of what the library is involved with, even if we're not the lead on those. So it bears mentioning there's a whole package of that kind of thing in this inventory. Next slide, please. Some of the things that are highlights in that we have talked much about them together, and or where we are the lead departments. So this is a mixture of things. We have the library department classification and compensation review, and this one is elemental to a lot of the other stuff that we get done. So because this will help us in recruitment and retention of staff, which is really going to be key in terms of those strategic responses and our ability to build data that lead us into those responses and also that measure their outcomes. So that whole part of building on the strategic framework is one of the key things that's dependent on the ripple effects from this classification and compensation review. We have the sensory story time coming, which of course is support for our physiologically and neurologically diverse community. We have the memorandum of understanding with our wonderful Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation. The 50th anniversary at 140 South Glendora is a perfect sort of conjunction with this evaluation of the city facility needs that is on the city's strategic plan. So we look forward to learning more about the building and about what our consultants, what the citywide consultants are going to say about the way we use our space and what options we might have for the future. It's a great time with the 50th anniversary of the building to be looking at that. Also, in the coming months, we're going to be introducing our mobile app with a little bit of delay because of some contract procedures that we had to go through, but it's starting to take shape. Next slide, please. Right there along with the communications plan is this making sure we design this part-time job that's for PR and marketing. It's already on the books. We just need to, it's brand new. So there's a lot of building that goes into creating it and filling that. And the mobile elements for the main floor, you've heard us talk about those. That's something that we've gone to the foundation, making some proposals about. Shelving, mobile meeting spaces, and mobile service spaces. And finally, of course, the celebration of the 50th anniversary at 140 South Glendora to achieve a variety of things with the community. Remember, there are things that we are hoping to achieve with that celebration, right? There are actual outcomes we're hoping for from that. Next slide, please. So those are some of the highlights that are in that rather lengthy inventory that we've presented to you. We are happy to answer any questions. Our recommendation for the evening is basically review and discuss as needed, and then receive and file. So next slide, and I'm happy to field whatever questions I can.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for adding the city's comments in there too. It's helpful and it puts things in context.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have no questions, but thank you, Janet, for creating this strategic plan. It was, at the time you created it, kind of awe-inspiring, and it continues to be. I think it works well, keeps everyone fairly well informed and fairly well moving along. And yeah, I personally am grateful, and I think the trustees are grateful, and I think the library is grateful for your creativity and what you did create here. And I think it took a couple nights of overtime to get it done.
It was really comprehensive. Thank you. Great job.
So if there's no other comments, I guess we can receive and file the report. Is there a motion to receive and file the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I would like to second.
Thank you. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Trustee Blum,
Aye.
Trustee Landman,
Aye.
Trustee Flowers is absent, Vice President Chu,
Aye.
and President Toland.
Aye.
That passes 401. Thank you.
So the next agenda item, unfinished business. Review orientation needs of the new board members. Director Stone?
Thank you. Next slide, please. I don't have a presentation for this other than to say the written report describes what's been covered on our checklist in terms of what we go through with the board members, and that past discussions that indicated there was an interest in sort of more follow-up is what prompted this to come back to the agenda to say, we're standing by to hear how things are going, and if there is indeed anything more that we need to cover or ensure or work on. So happy to discuss any aspects of the status of our process from either the trustees, standing trustees, or incoming trustees. Anything we can do to help.
I guess I'll go first. I think this list is great, and I I think this will be very helpful, especially having people emailing each other when new people come on board so that they feel welcomed. And I see here that there's also a point here where there's an orientation scheduled with director and president / vice president. So that's implying when new board members come on board, they will have a meeting with Janet and then whoever's president or vice president, right? Okay, is that something we are doing for Erica and Stephen? Are we starting that stuff
Yes.
this year?
Yeah, we had a meeting, when was that? In June? Was it
it was July.
June-ish? July? Okay.
Had probably a couple of meetings, right?
Yes. And so Doris at the time was present as well.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Trustee Doris, as former president. Blum, yes.
Yeah, I think this is great. Anything that the existing board members can do to help contribute to getting new board members oriented with how the meetings work and letting them know what are things that they can do. Like for me, it took me a while to understand how the meetings were run and what you could agendize and what you couldn't and all that kind of stuff. I think that's really helpful to know from the get-go, so that way we're more productive as a team.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I would just like to say I really felt overwhelmingly welcomed by everybody, and I appreciate that. There was a card from the library staff that was like the highlight of my day. I'm all, awesome, what's this? This is so cool. And then the emails from the fellow board members, Board of Trustees, and that was I don't know, it is it was just, it made me feel very welcome. I'll just say, so it made me feel very welcome, and I appreciated everybody who contacted me, and it just made me feel like I knew everybody a little bit more than before. So thank you, that was great. And all the binders that Janet created with all the information in it, perfect. And I felt in good hands. So I felt like I had a grasp on what was going on. So I appreciated that. Thanks.
So as I understand it, then there's no further direction that's needed on this item, no further staff action that's required. Then we can just receive and file the report that was given. If I can request a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I will take a roll call vote. Trustee Blum,
Aye.
Trustee Landman,
Aye.
Trustee Flowers is absent, Vice President Chu,
Aye.
and President Toland.
Aye.
And that passes 401. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And there is no new business to discuss tonight. So do any of the trustees or staff have any questions or comments?
Yes. I will be brief because it's kind of late, but I would like to thank the staff who was here this evening for their help and for their late night and for all that they do all the time. I don't know what COVID might be causing for the employees, but it must be causing something at work and at home. And so it's a special time and it's a difficult time for, I think, a lot of people. And so I just want to thank the library, and heaven's sakes, reading the director's report, so much has been going on through all of this. And, it's a great place doing great work. So thank you all.
Thank you, Doris. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you for saying that. I think we all share that sentiment, but you always say it so beautifully. So thank you for that. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 9:13 p.m.
Hey,